Tiffany Moss, 36, in 2019 was sentenced to die by lethal injection after being convicted of murder, cruelty to children, and concealing a murder in the death of her stepdaughter, Emani Moss. She is now the only woman on death row in Georgia. Let's get into it. Emani Gabrielle Moss was born on April 23, 2023 in Gwinnett County, Georgia. She was described as a bright, friendly, happy little girl who always smiling. She loved reading, dancing, cooking, and attending church and preaching sermons to her stuffed animals. At the age of 3, she attended ballet school, and at the age of 5, she learned to play the guitar. Emani was known to be the light of any room that she entered. Shortly after her birth, her mother surrendered her parental rights of Emani and her other 4 children because of her addiction to drugs. Emani was given sole custody to her father, Eman Moss. Eman would often attend Freedom Christian Church with Emani. There, in 2007, he met Tiffany Moss, who was a preschool teacher. Over the next couple of years, Tiffany and Eman began a relationship and were married in July of 2009, a few months after Emani turned 6 years old. Tiffany and Emani had a great relationship and got along from the moment they met in church. Soon after Eman and Tiffany got married, Emani became a big sister. Their family had extended by 2, Tristan and Emma. Tristan was 3 and Emma was only a year old at the time of Emani's death. Emani was excited to be a big sister. She was always sharing stories with her teachers about her baby brother and sister. However, less than a year after Tiffany and Eman were married, Tiffany began abusing Emani. March in 2010, Emani had shared with the school nurse that she was scared to go home because she had a bad report card and she would be in trouble with her stepmom, Tiffany. Tiffany had spanked Emani prior with a curtain rod for not doing her homework. The nurse observed Emani having whelps on her arms, chest, legs, back, and shoulders. Emani is taken to the police station and Tiffany admits that she spanked Emani, but she said she spanked her with a belt and that she only hit her around 3 times. Tiffany is arrested and charged with first-degree child cruelty, which results in her losing her job as a preschool teacher. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years probation per Georgia's first offender program. Emani is removed from the home by the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services and placed with her grandmother, Robin Moss, Eman's mother. During this time, Emani was doing well. Her grades got better in school and her behavior was even better. But after 3 months of being in the care of her grandmother, Emani was returned to Eman and Tiffany. Robin felt that Emani was being abused by Tiffany, so she fought to keep Emani in her custody. However, the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services required Eman and Tiffany to take parenting and anger management classes. Once they completed those classes, 3 months later, the Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services dropped their case against Tiffany and Emani was placed back in the home. Robin felt that Eman and Tiffany kept Emani away from her because Emani had begun to confide in her about the abuse. Robin Moss tried to get Child Services to open an investigation into allegations of abuse against Emani, but no actions were ever taken. After she lost her job, Tiffany began to resent Emani. She considered Emani a nuisance rather than a child. Tiffany stayed at home with the children while Eman worked. Eman worked 2 jobs to support the family, so there was very little time that he spent at the home. He stated at trial that he cared for the children on the weekends and Emani would eat a lot. Tiffany continued to abuse Emani, and in 2012, Emani runs away from home, not once, but twice in the same month. At her first attempt, Emani went to the office building in the apartment complex and told the staff that she wanted to run away because Tiffany had tied her up with a belt and forced her in a cold shower. When the police responded, Tiffany told them that Emani was lying. Because there wasn't any evidence, Emani was returned to Tiffany and Eman. On her second attempt of running away, Emani was found sleeping in the bushes at another apartment complex nearby. She told the police officer that found her that she ran away because her stepmother was mean to her. To ensure that she would be seen by a juvenile court judge, the officer filed a report to the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services against Emani for running away. Mother's Day 2013 was the last time that Emani's grandmother and aunt saw her. Eman and the family visit with his mom Robin and his sister for Mother's Day. Both Robin and his sister had noticed that Emani's hair was cut. When Robin questioned Tiffany about Emani's hair, she replied, "If you act ugly, you should look ugly." Eman's sister was also concerned about Emani acting scared and nervous when Tiffany would enter the room. Tiffany and Eman pulled Emani from school after she completed her 4th grade year. Eman's sister expressed concerns that something was wrong and didn't see a reason to pull Emani from public schooling. She called the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services asking them to intervene, but they declined to do so. August 2013, shortly after Emani had started being homeschooled, an anonymous call was made to the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services stating that Emani was being neglected. She was distant and scared to interact with others, and she looked to be very thin. However, they did not follow up. In the summer of 2013, Eman moved the family to the Coventry Point Apartments in Lawrenceville, Georgia. At some point, Tiffany began to starve Emani. Neighbors stated that they would see Tiffany with Tristan and Emma, but was not aware of Emani. Emani was kept hidden. She was never allowed to come out of her bedroom. Emani became weak and was not able to move, get out of bed, or even use the bathroom. Tiffany took pleasure in starving Emani while she ensured to feed Emma and Tristan. Emani had to be in pain as she laid in bed and smelled the meals that Tiffany would cook for her siblings. On the night of October the 24th, 2013, Eman comes home from work and Tiffany informs him that something was wrong with Emani. Eman finds Emani in the bathtub shaking, eyes rolling back and forth, and she was unconscious. He believes that Emani had a seizure. He removes her from the bathtub and places her back in her bedroom where she remained for a couple more days. He tries to feed her each day with no success. On October 28, 2013, Emani passed. She was severely underweight, weighing only 32 pounds, the average weight of a 3-year-old. Tiffany called Eman at work to tell him that Emani had died. Eman leaves work, and when he gets home, Tiffany was watching TV while Emma and Trista were playing, and Emani is laying in her bedroom on the floor. Eman suggested to Tiffany that they should call the police. Tiffany disagreed and convinced Eman otherwise in fear of losing Tristan and Emma. Instead, Tiffany suggests to Eman that they needed to be on their criminal minds and hide Imani's body. Eman then wraps Emani up in blankets and places her in the computer room where she remained for the next few days, while the rest of the family continued life as if nothing was wrong. Eman continued to go to work. Tiffany continued to take care of the other two children and carry on in the house as if nothing was wrong. Eman would even come home from work and spend time with Emani in the computer room grieving over her death. When the prosecutor asked him to explain why he chose not to get her medical attention, his words, "I can't explain it. I'm not God, but I just knew she was beyond repair." The day after Emani died, Tiffany brought new sheets and a new comforter for Imani's bed. Her idea was to bury Emani and report her as a runaway. Instead, Eman purchased a trash can from Walmart, some trash bags, charcoal, and lighter fluid. On Halloween night, Eman and Tiffany decided to put Imani's body in the trash can and burn it. However, rigor mortis had set in and her body was stiff. So to try and compress her body, they covered it with a comforter, wrapped it with duct tape, and placed her body in a trash bag. Early the next morning, Tiffany and Eman placed the trash can containing Imani's body in the back of their car, loaded up the other two children, and went to find a location to burn Imani's body. Once they found an area, they took the trash can out of the car, placed charcoal in the bottom, poured the lighter fluid on Imani's body, and lit the can. Their plan was to cremate her, but as they were watching her body burn, they realized that her body would not burn to ashes. So they put the fire out and took Emani back to the apartment in the trash can. Eman goes to work the next day with Imani's body still in the trash can in the back seat of his car. On his way home from his first job, he calls a friend and confesses as to what happened, and the friend urges him to call the police regardless of what Tiffany wanted. Eman thought about it as he continued the day. Around 4 a.m., after coming in from his second job, Eman decided to call the police. He tells the 911 operator that he is suicidal and that his daughter had drunk some chemicals and died. Tiffany learns that Eman has called the police, so she takes the trash can with Imani's remains out of their vehicle and places it in a grassy area at the apartment complex. She places the other two children in the car and she takes off. When the police arrive at the apartments, Eman tells them that he panicked and put her body in the trash can to try and cremate it. After seeing Imani's body in the trash can, the police knew her death wasn't caused by poisoning, but rather something that appeared to be going on long term. So they didn't believe Eman's story. Eman is questioned further and decides to confess. He told the officer about the plan that he and Tiffany had come up with to hide Imani's death. Eman is arrested, and after Tiffany took Tristan and Emma to her mother's home, she turned herself in. Tiffany Moss pleaded guilty in August of 2015 and agreed to testify against his wife in exchange for a life sentence without parole. Tiffany was given an offer to plead guilty and receive a life sentence without parole as well, but she decided to go to trial instead. Trial begins April 24th, 2019. Tiffany was given 2 state public defenders, Brad Gardner and Emily Gilbert. But when they recommended that she take the plea offer from the prosecution team, she decided to represent herself, and the public defenders were in court as her standby lawyers. She faced 3 possible sentences if convicted: life with parole, life without parole, or the death penalty. Tiffany didn't offer a defense during her trial. She declined to make an opening statement, cross-examine any witness, or offer a closing argument. She didn't even get up to address the jury or offer for her own family to take the stand and testify on her behalf. So, therefore, the jury didn't know anything about her. Judge George Hutchinson presided over the trial and encouraged Tiffany during pretrial hearings to rely upon her standby lawyers for help. But Tiffany refused. The state was represented by District Attorney Danny Porter and Assistant District Attorney Lisa Jones. The state called 18 witnesses that included Emani's grandmother, aunt, and fourth grade teacher, who all contacted the Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services to report abuse of Emani. Dr. Stauffenberg was the medical examiner who performed the autopsy on Emani. She testified that Emani was just skin and bones. The manner of death was homicide, and the cause of death was starvation. Jurors shed tears as the autopsy photos of Emani were shared in the jury box. The jury went into deliberation, and because there was conflict, the judge had them go home and sleep on it. The next day, after 3 hours of deliberation, the jury agreed on the death penalty. The judge agreed with the jury's ruling, and Tiffany was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Now, her execution was originally scheduled for June 7th and then again on June 14th of 2019. However, due to the appeal process, Tiffany was not executed as she retained a new lawyer and asked for a new trial. Tiffany was defended by Josh Moore, the appeal director for the Office of the Georgia Capital Defender's Office. The argument was that Tiffany was not competent to act as her own attorney due to testing that showed she had damage to the premotor and prefrontal parts of her brain. In January 2024, Gwinnett County Superior Court Judge Karen Byers rejected Moss's motion for a new trial, stating, in part, Tiffany intelligently, voluntarily, and knowingly invoked her right to self-representation. Eman and Tiffany never got divorced, but they did lose custody of Tristan and Emma. Both Tiffany's mother and Eman's mother tried to get custody of the children. However, their request was denied. Now, Robin, Eman's mother, was okay with that as long as Tiffany's mom didn't get custody of them. And the judge scolded Tiffany's mom for not stepping in as a grandmother and protecting Emani. Tristan and Emma were placed with a foster family who later adopted them both, and they were reported to be doing great with the family. In 2018, Emani's grandmother filed a lawsuit against the Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services, arguing that caseworkers were aware of deteriorating conditions and abuse in the Moss family and could have acted earlier. Robin is also suing the Department of Human Services. She is seeking a jury trial and reasonable compensatory damages. According to the lawsuit, there were multiple occasions where the department could have investigated the Moss household and intervened on behalf of Emani. As a result of the negligence of the Department of Family and Children's Services and its agents, Emani suffered constant abuse from 2008 until her ultimate death. Emani's murder led symptomatic changes in Georgia's child welfare system. After the murder, an intake case manager, a social service administrator, and a program assistant at the Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services were all terminated. Others were reported disciplined. Tiffany is serving her death row sentence at the Lee Ardell State Prison for Women in rural Georgia. Eman is currently incarcerated at the Smith State Prison in Glenville, Georgia. You know, we always say if you see something, say something. But in this case, that was done on multiple occasions and nothing was done. And I mean, Eman was just tapped out. He's so busy working to try to make ends meet because she can't work, which confused me because there are other jobs she could have done till he's not even home enough to even notice the things that Tiffany was doing to Emani. We are losing so many kids because people are seeing something and saying something and nothing is not being done. Just looking at cases and looking at different cases of children that are dying due to, neglect of CPS not doing their job. It's everywhere. Something's got to change. Something has got to change. Do you think that she knew what she was doing? I know a lot of times when the judge was asking her, or trying to get her, to rely on her standby lawyers, she was like, I'm just going to put it in God's hands. And, and okay, I get that. But God says be wise too. During trial, I feel like she had no questions or no defense because she knew she was wrong. She knew the evidence against her was going to be all that it took. I totally agree with Robin. And the judge. I just don't think that Tiffany's mom would have been a great fit to have custody of Emma and Tristan. They probably don't remember. I did read something where, Tristan remembered, was saying some things to let you know he remembered some stuff. But as he grows, that would probably be completely out of his memory. And, of course, Emma was just a year old, so she didn't remember anything. All right, guys, that is it from me. Don't forget to like and comment on what you think about this case. I would love to chat with you on your thoughts. Until next time, take care, guys.